Thank you so much for joining us today for Resonance Rising. I'm Marrissa Rhodes, your host, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Lisa Barnett. Lisa Barnett, the founder of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, channels her extensive spiritual expertise into transforming lives through the Akashic Records. Lisa has taught thousands of students worldwide to access their personal soul library to receive wisdom, guidance, and support to transform their lives. As the best-selling author of Akasha, Your Soul Has a Plan, From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life, and The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records, Lisa shares profound insights that guide individuals toward enlightenment and self-realization. With more than 30 years of experience in spiritual healing, Lisa teaches empowerment tools to help you find greater fulfillment, happiness, abundance, and health. She offers Akashic reading and quantum healing sessions to heal trauma, release karma, clear old soul contracts and vows, helping individuals align with their soul's plan and path. Wow. Major work that you are doing, Lisa. I'm so honored that you are here with us here inside the summit, and I'm really looking forward to the wisdom you're going to be sharing with us. But before we go there, I wonder if you would mind sharing just a little bit about yourself, your own story, and what is it that brought you to the work that you're doing?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me too. I'm excited to be here and share this beautiful wisdom, which was actually hidden for about 1,000 years.
Mm.
So my story started a very, very long time ago when I was only 3 years old. And I, as a little toddler, realized, kind of had a memory of not being in a body and realized I was back in a human body. And I started telling my mother that I wanted to go home. Poor mom. Anyway, but because I had this kind of awareness, I started studying spirituality in my teenage years, really around 13, 14 years old. And it just kind of went on for pretty much the rest of my life. And, so I say 30 years because that's been kind of working in the work, but I've probably been studying for almost 60, which is a little crazy, but true. So,
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, a lifetime, and I've heard this often, that the kind of intuitive knowing from early ages that led you into just following your curiosity, following the path that you're on and
right.
going for it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's honestly so many light workers here on earth. And so many of us are called kind of in that more overt sort of way, like my type of story. It was interesting though, because I really was triggered to start studying when my first best friend died at 13.
Oh,
And I felt like I should have been able to heal her, but why the heck would I think that? Right?
right.
So I was like, I need to find out more because it's almost like I remember I was a healer, but
Yeah.
that's
Right. But at that age, you don't have any sort of language or understanding of why you might have a feeling like that or
my
something.
parents were normal people. I mean, granted, back then it was the late 60s, early 70s, but still, they were regular people. My mom was a teacher, my dad was an architect. They had no idea what I was talking about. So it
Yes.
was kind of up to me to do the research. And I remember in high school sharing my weird views of how things worked with my friends. And again, I was very blessed to have friends who would be like, wow, that's interesting. Nobody told me I was crazy. I was one of the lucky ones, right?
Yes. Oh, it sounds like you were really supported then
Yes,
in
yes.
what
Yeah.
you were doing.
No.
Yeah. Which, like you said, it's not the case for everyone, but I'm so glad to hear that it was for you. So along the way, then that brought you to the Akashic Records. For anyone who maybe hasn't heard that term, or maybe not even felt into that yet, what
Mm,
exactly are the Akashic Records and how would accessing them support us?
sure. So the Akashic record is the recording of your soul's journey throughout all time space continuum. So
Mm,
if you imagined that from the moment your soul individuated from source and your soul says, "Ooh, I'm going to be a separate, being, and I'm going on this journey." And of course, we are all always part of oneness. And part of the plan is for us to be the expression of source in billions and billions of forms. So naturally, what happens is that um, everything we ever do is recorded in this field that we call the Akasha. So it is Akashic Records, or Akasha is a Sanskrit word that means sky or ether. So I like to just imagine that everything I've ever been or done, like in a video, is uploaded to the cloud, right, to the sky or ethers. It's all there in the divine source energy. It is actually all part of source quantum field, and it is accessible to us. But what I was mentioning in the very beginning was that the beings of light that keep the Akashic records, and I call them the Akashic record keepers just for simplicity. There is usually a team. Each and every person has a library and a team of librarians. And so it's not one record. You have your very own Akashic library and your own team of record keepers who would speak to you. And
Wow.
so not only is every lifetime on Earth and other realms recorded and stored in your Akashic library, you wrote a specific plan before you embodied this time. And that plan includes soul contracts with other people that you wanted to have. So, relationships, supportive relationships, karmic relationships, things you wanted to work on with other souls, right? You might have a shared karmic pattern that you want to learn about and complete. We write that into our records. So, a lot of the big challenges and traumas that happen in our life is also included in your Akashic records, as well as the gifts and talents you came to share.
Mhm.
So, those purposes, right? People are always looking for their purpose. And kind of the funny thing the record keepers often say is your purpose is to complete your soul plan, right?
Okay, yes.
So there's the easy answer in a way, but it includes finishing karmic patterns, supporting other people, learning and growing as a soul, sharing these gifts and talents with others, whether it's one other or in a much bigger way, your community or humanity, however ever that is for you as a soul, and we're all unique. So what I know is that the benefit of accessing your Akashic records is that it gives you access to really why you came here, why you have these challenges, what you were actually thinking before you embodied. What gifts do you have that maybe you're unaware of? And what I find for most people is that, we have these intuitive hits or these inklings or these kind of thoughts or feelings like, maybe I'll write a book, or wouldn't it be kind of fun to go to all these sacred sites, and maybe I'll take some people with me. That could be very cool, right? And
Mhm.
so, but often as a human, we think, how could I do that? What do I know about that? And so in your Akashic record, you can ask those questions and visit and come to understand maybe the past lives where you wrote many books, and how often you were either an author or some sort of scribe or scholar, and that we may have built some of those sacred sites or been present in them in other lives. So there may be a real key or code that sacred site holds for you and your soul family, who might be your best friends, and it might be some of your family members. And maybe you're being called to take them all back to reactivate that key at that sacred site. So
Mm.
there's so many more levels and layers to who we are
Mm.
and what we do. It
Yes,
meets the eye.
absolutely. That is such a beautiful perspective as well. And I think whenever we are disconnected from sort of that larger picture, like you said, it leaves us searching what is our sole purpose. But when we can kind of expand into what has this looked like throughout lifetimes. And how do we even channel that then back into this lifetime we're in today? It makes life feel more alive, I would imagine. And I love the metaphor you used. It was where my mind actually went to uploading everything to the cloud. I'm thinking of you get a new iPhone or something like that. And then all of the other stuff that was on your iPhone previously is still there somewhere. You just have to like pull it back down into your phone, right? From the cloud. It sounds like it's kind of a similar concept.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And so, of course, I work with clients, every day to read their records, to decipher this information, to do energetic quantum healing for them so we can clear past life traumas, childhood traumas, often our big challenges or our karmic pattern shows up as some kind of traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And we can do a lot of very powerful healing through this field of the quantum Akasha, because again, source is quantum. The Akashic record is the information arm of source. And so we are held in that profound field of all and nothing, which means that
Yeah.
we really can often release the pain and the trauma back to nothingness and then open to the all, which is the infinite possibilities that are here for you. And so
Yeah.
as we start to re visit things from a different point of view, in a way, I always say it feels like when you open your records, and when I teach people to do this for themselves, and they have this experience of really moving into a space of pure love and pure peace, because that
Mhm.
is the vibration of source.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so you get to experience that, which is just profound healing in its own right without even asking a question. But then, of course, I teach people to ask all these kinds of questions that start to help you to understand who you are and why you're here and why this challenge, why that person, what about that thing that happened, right? And so we can answer our big questions. We start to see the world really from, 100 floors up, looking down on the earth from the top of a skyscraper and feeling like, oh, it looks nice out there when I'm not standing in the middle of rushing traffic and honking cars and buses flying by and things like that. We could be like, oh, look, it's spacious and expansive, and look at how far I can see. This
Yeah.
is really literally, it's like that energy of source, of quantum, we are able to start to embody, which in its own right transforms your life.
Absolutely. Like you said, that alone begins an initiation of in its own right. I'm curious because I know that you have shared that we can actually rewrite aspects of the Akashic records. What has shifted cosmically or collectively, or maybe it's always been this way, that makes that possible?
It actually is more cosmically, honestly. Even not that many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I could do quite a bit of unwriting of things that were very conscious for clients. I've always, and part of my purpose is to kind of deprogram people and humanity in a bigger way, because we have all been living under very intense, very strong programs on this planet for at least the last 12,000 years, and further. So it's been possible for some, but now what I'm seeing is it has become much, much, much easier, because it's easier to move further into the Akash. I like to teach my students literally how to do this in the quantum.
Hmm.
And what the record keepers say is that our higher consciousness, really the higher frequency and vibration that we hold, the easier it is to release these old patterns, release that story about the trauma. We can literally go in energetically and delete emotional pain and trauma in this quantum field. Again, just
Mm.
because you're in this quantum energy of everything and nothing, the quantum will allow us with awareness, with consciousness, right? And so I say that because occasionally someone will come for a reading and they'll say, can we just clear all my karmic patterns through all times? you know, I often will say is then, are you sure? Because then likely you will have no purpose to be here any longer and you just may leave, which means something will
Um,
come along and
yeah.
you will probably die, right? Because we've kind of, everything is done. Why stay? Really, if you think about it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. If it's all finished. I mean, a part of what is hard to wrap our minds around, but is the truth, is that our growth happens through the difficult things in life. That it's the contrast often. Now, I think it doesn't have to be as mired in as it once was, perhaps. I think there's capability for gentleness at times as well. But the reality is, yeah, we learn through contrast, or our nervous system, even just on just the human body level. We only expand through the tension, knowing what that means to have to kind of step out of a comfort zone or things like that. So yeah, our purpose must be found. Some tendrils of it must be found in those moments, right?
Absolutely. And it is the work, the releasing of the pain and the trauma, and really kind of the reaping of the wisdom of the
Yes,
gifts that we
that's
are
right.
then able to share with other people. So we're not just up and deleting everything we've ever been. And again, just like you said, it is getting much easier because as we start to move from a place of victimhood where we feel like everything is being done to us, to realizing as we're in the Akasha and in these higher frequencies that you are an ancient and infinite and wise soul, and you actually made the plan, including the traumas and the challenges and the dramas, because you knew that you could handle it. And you always can. And so we come to complete these aspects, to complete the challenges and the traumas. We've come to complete a lot of the very dense, low vibrational, challenging programs, which have to do with things like abuse and imbalance in masculine feminine. We see that as a big thing that's trying to get unwritten and changed and rewritten right now in the world. There are ways, and it doesn't mean it's easy to go through that, but it can be very enlightening when we allow ourselves to honor ourselves and our wisdom and the truth, and knowing that you really chose to do this so you could share this with others in some way. Like the record keepers like to remind us, it might be one person. You might have one conversation with one person that transforms their life, or in
Yes.
some ways is that's all you came for, and sometimes that's all we come for, and to hopefully live a love filled life. In some ways we are complex and we are ancient, and as we awaken and as we do our own work and our own healing, that's rippling out to humanity. As I say, part of my work is to unwrite and really clear a lot of these old energy programs that hold the earth really locked down in this third dimension. As we can clear them and break them and release those ties that have bound us down for tens of thousands of years, we
Yes.
will actually much more easily awaken. And that is the process. As I started saying, it's much more cosmic. It has to do with the fact that we are moving into the age of Aquarius, that we are moving into a golden age. We've just
Yeah.
stuck our little baby toe in the water, so we haven't noticed it yet, most of us. But
Yeah.
this is part of the process. I don't even know if it's been 100 years, 50 years or so. When you're looking at a 26,000 year yuga, what's 50 years or
Right.
100 years?
Right.
Well,
It's
like
like a drop. Mhm.
it is, but it's noticeable. And right now, we completed 2012 to 2024. We completed a very intense 12-year process of deconstructing and starting to rebuild the new foundation.
Yeah.
And so, literally, starting in 2025, we are starting to actually build forward. And what all of this light that's streaming to the world that's causing all the beautiful aurora borealises and all of these high vibrational energies, which are wiping a lot of us out. I mean, a lot of us are very exhausted by all this light
Yeah.
and energy
Yes.
that's coming to the earth. So just rest more. It's all
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
It just requires more self care, right?
Right. For those that are maybe intuiting this energy, maybe they've not recognized it consciously, but intuiting this energy, who is here in this audience for this summit, because, the whole thing that I was getting a sense of is the ways that so many of those old paradigm ways of leading in particular are crumbling. And there is much more of a need for, and maybe a seeking happening around integration and the embodiment of both the masculine and feminine energy that allows us to understand that there is much more complexity and nuance, and that not everything is just tangible and seen, but that we've got to find our symbolic knowing, which I think is so much of that. That is the Akashic record. It's not something you see necessarily right in front of you, but an energy, a space that you step into. Even you're talking about the work of quantum healing within the Akashic field and how you do that. I'm wondering if you would mind sharing a little bit more what happens energetically when a healing is done on that quantum level.
So the way it comes to me very often is, say, a client will come to me, and I'll just use a pretty simple example like money, because it's usually a big issue. And often when, we are entrepreneurs and in business and just as humans and at this time and space. So people will often come and they'll want to do some work. What's blocking me from greater abundance? All these kind of questions. And so in the Akashic record, I would ask the record keepers. So I'm having a conversation with the beautiful beings of light, the librarians that keep your Akashic records. They're different than mine or than anybody else's, and they answer questions for you. And
Mhm.
so they would tell me about maybe some experience that you had as a child. They would tell me about the way that your father thought about money. Sometimes it's an ancestral lineage piece. That whole lineage of the family had money issues and beliefs around money, being kind of dirty or whatever. We have all of these things that we pick up
Yeah.
actually very unconsciously. And so we would look at all of the what's happened in this life that we can unravel and undo. And again, just if you can imagine that you're in the energetic field of the Akash. So, what I do is I bring all of my clients into this field with me so they can kind of energetically, if they're sensitive, many don't feel, but many do, maybe feel some experience of the energy moving or their heart shifting, or sometimes they'll feel a pain leave their body. And so, in that field, we can energetically kind of go back down this timeline, releasing the emotional pain and the trauma from the childhood. We can go up through this ancestral lineage in this quantum field, burning through some of the old ancestral maybe contracts or vows, or sometimes there's curses back in these ancestral lineages, and we can kind of burn them out. And we're making space for the record keepers, for really source to bring the energy of possibility, filling these spaces with possibility. And then we go back through past lives, and maybe you had some past lives as a priest or a nun, and you took vows of poverty. So we want to energetically burn those vows of poverty. And
Mhm.
so releasing these vows, because they have no end date. When we very often will take kind of a spiritual vow, or when we make vows, I would say, if we vowed, I will love you forever, that can be a very sticky vow, because that person might show up in a life where you don't even have a soul contract with them. And you're like, "Ooh, who are you?" Maybe I should get divorced and marry you, right? And people come to me with this kind of challenge, and I'll be like, "Oh, past life vow, love you forever. They're part of your soul family, but you didn't write a contract with them in this life. So we'll clear and release those ties, that
Mm.
again, that bind us in so many very intense ways. And so we clear the vows, we clear lifetimes where we vowed never to have money because maybe you got killed because you were very rich and
Mm.
someone murdered you for your gold, or maybe you were very lonely because you're afraid of people because you were really rich and you kept everybody out, right? We have all sorts of different ways of going about this, but we're
Yeah.
creating vows. We have contracts that get stuck through pain and trauma, and all of this energy, I kind of look at it almost like just an energetic timeline. And I'm just going back and I get a little bit of a story. I might see an image or two of the people, but I like to do a lot of work in a short time so I don't get too trapped up in one life. It's like,
One
well,
life.
we could do 10, you know. you
Mhm.
know, you have three past lives where you were a nun, and one is a monk, and one back here is a high priestess, and we can literally go through and energetically start to release and disconnect and unwrite. This is the aspect of unwriting, consciously aware. I'm unwriting those vows of poverty or those vows to not have money because it's wrong or it's bad or whatever was the story in that time. We literally are releasing, and I kind of see it almost like smoke releasing, floating away, energy releasing. Everything is energy. And so it's returning back to source to be recycled for the highest good of all. And then, of course, the quantum source energy can fill the space back up again with your highest Akashic light and wisdom, highest infinite possibilities for you. So what that helps with is it actually helps new doors to open, new opportunities to show up, new people to show up. Things you may never have thought about, all of a sudden, blink, it just drops in. You're like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll try that, because we've created space. We've released the old and the stuck and the heavy and that, sometimes dark energy,
Yes.
created space for the new, for the infinite possibilities to come in.
To come
And
through.
then, of course, one of the things that is very helpful for us, especially at this time, is to continue to keep our vibration higher, raising our vibration, trying
Mm.
to not get stuck, drop back down into, you know, victimhood, old story, woe is me, life is bad, my boss is terrible. When
Mhm.
it becomes important to get aware of those old patterns of thinking and
Yes.
start to change them to really support this beautiful energy of possibility that is there waiting for you to kind of raise your vibration and step into, open those doors and really um, allow yourself to receive these gifts.
Oh, yes. I want to clarify something too as you talk about raising the vibration. I know that sometimes that's been a sticky area where it can feel like spiritual bypassing. I know that's not where you're coming from with it, especially as you talk about bringing conscious awareness to these hard parts of our lifetimes and things like that. So, how do you maybe reckon with that or make sense of that as you encourage high vibration? And
Right.
also, how do we do that?
Right. Good question. Because I was going to say, I don't know if it's actually a spiritual bypass because it's a lot of work.
It's a
So,
lot of work. You're right. When it is being done in that direction, it is work, right?
right.
Yeah.
Right. And we can do it in so many different ways. One of the easiest ways for us is to connect really deeply with nature, to
Yeah.
spend time walking, sitting with hugging trees wherever you can go, and it might be in your garden, maybe for you it's gardening, or just sitting and meditating for a little bit in your garden. To me, one of the things that I always tell my students, once they've learned the access key, so I teach a 5-step wisdom prayer system. So it's a very simple process to access the Akash. And so the record keeper suggests you open the records, right? Takes all of 2 minutes, honestly, once you learn, and sit in this vibration of source energy. Be in your heart. use the healing prayers that I give people in my workshops, and hang out with your record keepers, ask questions, ask for them to help you to
Mhm.
understand, to realize, to let go of the fear or the anxiety or the pain or the trauma, to start to understand. There's a piece of understanding to me that the Akasha brings, which is so, so powerful.
Yes.
So to me, spiritual bypass is, I just want to jump up and have it all. And it really doesn't work. You might for a minute or two, and then often we kind of come back to ourselves and our old patterns and our lower vibration and our fears and our traumas and our stories. So it's about understanding and releasing the story,
Mhm.
understanding why you may have had that very challenging childhood, and being able to feel, know, kind of really grok in this very energetic way the bigger truth of who you are as an infinite soul.
Yes. Yes.
And
So
as we start to understand, feel, know that we literally are raising our vibration,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then being in the records, being in nature, doing really beautiful processes, whether it's yoga or meditation or walking, hiking, swimming, allowing your mind to have free time, which is not easy in our world, right?
No, there's a speaking of like the cloud, right? Like we are inundated with information in every direction. It's really hard to find that stillness and silent space and then to let ourselves be in that. I know so often people are fearful, really, if they were honest with themselves about being with the stillness and the sensation and the silence within themselves. So yeah, I mean, I really hear what you're saying is ways to become embodied, doing things that you enjoy that get you into your body and allow for some stillness, some quietness of the mind. But then also when the things come forward, maybe it is the hard times or the pain or the emotion that doesn't feel great, being with that to understand it, to let it move through. And just in that work, our frequency is rising.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
So one of the beautiful gifts is you were so graciously reading the titles of my books.
Yeah.
I have written a book which is called From Questioning to Knowing:
Mhm.
73 Prayers to Transform Your Life. And I channeled 73 healing prayers through the Akashic Records and the Akashic vibration, that energy of source is imbued in those prayers. And so
Mhm.
just by reading these prayers, they start to kind of, clear, peel little layers and peel little layers. And over the years, I've had so many, whatever, hundreds or thousands of people who say, I carry your book with me because I sometimes just open up to a prayer, or maybe I'm having a challenging day and I feel angry. There's a prayer to release anger. So,
Mhm.
73 healing prayers really about clearing the low vibrational shame, blame, guilt, anger, all of these energies. And so for most of us, it is a process. It's a peeling and it's an awareness, and it happens over time. And
Mhm.
every day or every month, it gets a little lighter, feels a little easier. A new door opens, something beautiful shows up, and we
Yes.
are empowered to continue on the path. And like I say, I've been on this my whole life and it has not been a cakewalk. But
Right. You've gotten lots of practice in, I imagine.
one of the things that we often realize is, especially for those of you who are kind of new to spirituality, I often I'm speaking to people who feel like I've only been awake for like 6 months or 3 years, whatever it is, not 30 or 60, but you can't go back. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
once we open the door and we see that light, who
Yes.
wants to go back? But it really is that calling, because we are being called to the divine. We are literally being called back home to source, and the light and the pure love and joy and grace and ease of the divine. And that's what we are here to create by moving into the fourth dimension and fifth
Mm,
dimension, and eventually on is creating a new earth.
beautiful, beautiful work. You know, we're close to the end of our time here for today. I have one final question that I've liked to ask each speaker who's being featured, and it's a little more personal. It is, how do you know in your body, in your own field, in your knowing that you're leading in alignment with your own soul? What does that feel like for you?
Mhm. Um, it feels like ease. The easiest thing I can say is things just happen, right? It is that people show up, they invite you to, for me to speak. Sometimes the record keepers will ask me to write another book. Someone will show up to support that. Everything just kind of happens without a lot of work. So there is a lot of grace when we truly are in alignment with our soul's path. And
Mm,
just because we fall out of grace for a day or 5, doesn't mean you're off the path.
that's
There
right.
are definitely bumps in the road, and so sometimes it's like, "Oh, something to align." Of course, I'm checking in and asking the record keepers, "Is this time for a break?" Or, what's up? Like, how can I best realign myself? And to me, the gift of being able to access your own Akashic records with ease is to be able to open your records in 2 minutes and have that conversation with your Akashic librarians and say, "Oh, is there something to do? Am I missing something? Is there some
Mhm.
energy to clear? Did somebody get in my field that kind of tripped me up, or what's happening?" It is a very powerful, empowering, transformational tool to learn to read your own Akashic records.
That was the word that came to mind. Very empowering. And I love the approach that you're taking. What I hear you saying is you want to empower people to be able to access their own, like lovely for them to come and visit you as well, but to be able to access your own records at any point in time and to know how to get back in alignment to follow your own guidance in that way. That is beautiful, powerful work and much needed in our time for sure. And for anyone who is interested in your work, all of your free gift and all of your other links to websites, things like that, will be linked below this video. So they're welcome to take a look there and explore all that you have to offer.
Beautiful.
Lisa,
Thank you.
of course, yes. And I just want to thank you so much for the time that you've given to us and to this summit today. And I really appreciate all that you've brought here for us.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure, really a joy to spend time with you and everyone and get to share this Akashic wisdom, because it is truly time right now to empower yourself by
Yeah.
accessing your own soul's wisdom and guidance through the Akashic records.
Mm, thank you.